Yes. So let me welcome our last speaker of the day. I haven't forgotten Iain. Professor Iain Campbell. He was very nicely introduced by Ulrike this morning, so I don't need to say very much about Iain. Unless I give to
hair. The picture what they saw this morning, I had hair.
Yes, this is Iain Campbell. Yes, and he's going to talk to us about current treatment in terms of non-invasive neuromodulation in eating disorders. Thank you very much, Iain.
The last talk of the afternoon, Daniel Kahneman wrote about people that went through heavy, intense days. I think he did studies in the courts, and he said that what happened was that it wasn't they weren't able to make judgments at the end of the day, but they got to the point where they didn't care. And it was, he said, he defined it as ego depletion, and I'm sure there will be a bit of that. So I'm going to talk to you very simply about neuromodulation, and a lot of it is quite simplistic in the ideas, but there are loads of problems which I'll come to just at the very end. So, do I just press myself? South London. Other way around. Okay. This talk could be given by any one of about 20 folk who've worked with us over the last 20 years, you know. We're doing it for a long time. But I'll just tell you that people have been interested in stimulating the brain since the Roman times, and putting an electric fish on top of your head to get the electrical stimulation to get rid of the headache. I don't think smelliness is the only problem. I don't know, but, and then through the 18th and 19th century, Italians like Luigi Galvani and Alessandro Volta and were stimulating muscles and showing that you could get contractions. And the French, I have to say, did even more strange experiments. The French, I think, took people from the guillotine and lifted their heads up and stimulated and said, "Oh, look, the Count of Aquitaine is smiling at me." And so they had all these experiments that were done, and people realizing there's something electrical going on, and this was the critical, something electrical going on in the body, and it was gradually the whole concept of nerves and so on emerged. Now, I'll just mention James Clerk Maxwell, because of course one of the big buildings that King's has in Waterloo is a James Clerk Maxwell building, and if you ask people who's James Clerk Maxwell, they'll say, "No idea, I have no idea." But James Clerk Maxwell was a theoretical physicist, and he wrote Maxwell's equations, and that tied electrical activity and magnetic fields and so on together. So electromagnetic fields. So if you're in a pub quiz, you'll know who James Clerk Maxwell was. So now, there are various kinds of neuromodulation procedures. They either, in very simple terms, apply a small current onto the surface of the skull, and with the idea that there will be some transmission through. The alternative is that you can use a oscillating magnetic field, again sitting on, and that induces a current below the surface. And the direct current stimulation, you can see number 3. They use things like 1 to 2 milliamps. They're talking about very small currents, and that even these apparatus, although we use them with a helmet, you can buy them as a lifestyle thing, so you can be sitting watching TV with your own TDCS machine. These are all very different from things like ECT. ECT, of course, is used and is important for treating depression, but it uses 800 milliamps, not 1 to 2 milliamps. So you're talking big difference. And of course, it's given under anaesthetic. One other thing that just mentioned en passant is that you can do deep brain stimulation. You can put a wire, surgically you can implant a wire into somebody's brain, and you can stimulate brain areas. And that's used mainly by neurosurgeons in relation to physical conditions like Parkinson's disease, DBF. It has been used in eating disorders, the study done in Canada, and it seemed to work. There was people who had been ill with eating disorders for maybe 20 years. But there are problems in the long term. You can get infections in the wire and various things happening. So it's not trivial to think about. Okay. Now, there's actually lots of neuromodulation studies going on, but is that my left? You're in the diagram on the left side there. You'll see by far most studies have been done in depression, by far. And also the number of studies that is being done, again, is depression. There's a huge emerging depression literature using a neuromodulation. And there's a meta-analysis being done. It's really quite effective. So it's really quite established in depressive illness. Okay. And where do people stimulate? Hi, Simon. Very good. Where do people stimulate the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex? Usually the left side. And there are lots of hypotheses implicating using that area. It is based on models of eating disorders, which say that eating disorders occur as a problem between the cognition-emotion interface, so-called top-down, bottom-up models of illness, and one is essentially disrupting this problem between these, as I say, top-down, bottom-up areas. The kind of thing that one of my ex-students, Sam Brooks, was very involved in her time. Good. Now, before I go on, we had these in the late 1990s. We had a PhD student from Prague in the days when there was EU money available. And this was, as Ulrika mentioned there, was Rudolf Uher, and he had done these studies saying, look, there's all this activity, and maybe we should try and stimulate these prefrontal areas. So he turned up in the early 2003s. Why don't we use this machine? And he had I think he got it from all these Psychiatry, but he gave it to me, and then he gave it to Ulrika, and then we gave him. We decided this is okay, this is bearable, sort of. And so we started our NIB studies. So it's 20 years ago. We've done loads of studies, small studies. Everything is very slow, of course, if you're doing clinical interventions, and you're doing safety measures, and you're getting ethics, etc., etc. But I'll just give you a couple. Oh, okay. This is what a TMS machine looks like, and the lady on the left is Dr. Riley Austin, now in Canada, and on the other side is Dr. Lucy Gallup, now in the city. And they were part of this Tiara trial where we looked at people with anorexia, and they were given a 4-week course of TMS and followed up for up to, actually initially for 12 weeks, but then for maybe 6 months, maybe even longer, 18 months in the end. And people's mood improved. That was one of the the most obvious things. Mood improved. People's attitude to food changed. They I'm less fussy about what I eat. And in the long term, they gained weight. This is the kind of phrases that people used. They became more relaxed and started eating. And at follow-up, the people who'd had the TMS, their weight improved really quite well. So this was all very positive. But it is not trivial doing TMS. It takes time, and it's time for the patient, it's time for the folk involved. And there are other protocols that people are now trying to develop. And one of these is transcranial direct current stimulation, which involves, as I said, it just can be something stuck on your brow, but you can have it as a soft helmet, and it delivers this low current across your brow. And importantly, people can take it home and do it. The other thing is they can do something else. So you can say, can you try and learn to look at food, or can you try and learn to be more do a flexibility test? You can try and do various other things. So philosophically, you're saying, or hypothetically, you're saying we are trying to look for something synergistic rather than just a treatment on its own. So people do that, and we're still doing these kind of things. That's what it looks like. That's Dr. Michaela Flynn, who is somewhere in sunny Australia at this point. But again, her study again showed that when you combine TDCS with attention bias modification, you can see the green line there. People do best. So it looks as though it is maybe the TMS, the TDCS is a synergistic process. Okay, so we're doing a couple of other studies, and the folk are in the room. I think that we've been hiding. One is hello. This is another study, and again, using another form of TMS, but it is a very quick intervention. It takes a few minutes, like 3 minutes rather than 30 minutes, and it's used a lot in depression now, and works in depression. And people use accelerated protocols. They instead of having a 4-week protocol. Hi, good. So all right, one more, 2 more, and we're doing a similar kind of study, but we're looking at the combination of TDCS and mindfulness in people who are overweight or obese. It is Manar. She's hiding somewhere there. Anyway, good. Now I've done, so this is what's going on. I want to just finish with the last slide. That here's the problems. That they really like drugs. The difference between what you can see in terms of physiology and what you can see in terms of behavior is very unexplained, inexplicable, really. Certainly, these interventions do work. There's quite good evidence now, but the protocols they're very pragmatic, and they need more development. The type and the site and the frequency, all of these parameters need to be looked at. The problem is these studies will take a time, and if somebody has a protocol that works, people say, yeah, we better not change it, because if we change it and it doesn't work, people say you didn't do it right. And you're caught in this double bind, and you say, but we need to try and move on. And so there's this constant dynamic problem about making change and so on. there needs to be more studies looking at other combination with other clinical interventions, because it's conceptually important, because you're trying to say, are you doing something randomly to the brain to allow it to change, or are you actually changing something in relation to the behavior you're changing? So there's theoretical and clinical implications from this. The neurophysiology is way behind. No, neurophysiology is way behind. People really don't know what's happening. You know, if you stimulate up the motor cortex, I'm in the last line. But people don't know what's happening. People don't know these areas like the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. What on earth is happening when you stimulate them? So it's very, very unclear. And the kind of thing that Van was talking about this morning, this big picture story needs to come out. People going to have to do a lot more imaging, and using AI and trying to get big picture changes in systems. That's what I think, and that's hopefully the way we will go. Good. All right. Are you waving to Mima?
So, thank you. We don't have time for questions, sadly. Okay, sadly, but you can approach him outside.
No one approaches me. Good. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.